So Finkel had to be there between 1931 and 1936, but it made him 4 years older than his contemporaries. How did that come to pass? I had to put him in the Merchant Navy for 4 years to get it. So that's my time frame, Bill. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Lady at the back.
Tell me how you think of the Valley of the Bow. What significance does that have for Ireland?
Significance? No significance whatsoever. Again, I don't speak Irish, but I have friends who translate it for me. It's 3 words, Bally Book Island Bow. That's the townland, little village and surrounding. Book is cow. Book is boy, I'm sorry. And bow, depending on how you spell it, is either huts or cow. So it literally means the townland of the boy's cow. And it's not as crazy as that. When we were living in Ireland, there were 8 miles further, I think. Drumshanbo, Drum, Ridge, Shan, Old, Bow, Cow. The ridge of the old cow. Most Irish names are musical and they mean things. I got the name because when I was a schoolboy, our French teacher, who had a very, very thick accent, would say to a stupid student like myself, Patrick Taylor, you're so stupid, you've come from Ballybuckle Bow. The stupidity and the name have stayed with me, so crept into the book. Yes, ma'am?
I ask you because my mother used to send me to Ballybuckle Bow.
Your mother's?
My mother used to send me to Ballybuckle Bow.
For the same reason?
For the same reason?
Yes. You have to get your mother and my ex-school teacher to talk to each other. Excuse me, yes, I'm getting dry. Slanter.
I see Mrs. Kincaid is still writing recipes.
Oh, yes.
She'll continue to do so? I rather like them.
She says she will. Wait, I'm wrestling at the moment, and don't hold me to it. I'm wrestling at the moment with plans for a companion. People like Jan Corone write I can't remember the name of her village, Companion. And I've got it written down. You know, all the books, they start with quotations. Every chapter has a quotation. Well, people like trivia, and they want to know where the quotations come from. So I've got a section on that. People get very, very confused about Ulster. I've been asked by some Americans, Ulster, is that in Belfast? And that's a bit like saying America is that in Washington, D.C. So I've written a history, very tongue-in-cheek, of Ireland and how the North of Ireland came to be on and all that kind of stuff. It would not be a Ballybuckle Bow companion without an awful stack of Mrs. Kincaid's recipes in it. So there we come. All right, now I'm going to put you on hold for a minute and just do a couple more stories. And then I'll open it further. Karen, what did you say my cut-off was? Cut-off time?
Midnight. You've got about 20, 30 more minutes.
20, 30? Oh, I can probably keep it short. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to get away from the rural idyll of Ballybuckle Bow. Not all of Ireland is oxeye daisies and hummingbirds. In fact, none of Ireland is hummingbirds. We have them in our back garden here, and I like them. There's some pretty grim parts of Ireland too, and some of the grimmest were the tenements in Dublin from about 1802 to about 1940. 14 people to a room, 1 slop bucket for night soil, 1 cold water pump in the courtyard. And so I wanted to set some of this in the tenements. You will find O'Reilly is an inordinately, under this gruff exterior, an extraordinarily empathic man. What made him that way? What made him that way was in part what he saw as a young man in the slums of Dublin. Earlier in this book, he has looked after Sergeant Paddy Keogh. Sergeant Keogh only has 1 arm. He lost it on the Battle of the Somme in the First World War. Of course, when the British Army discharged him, he was an Irishman. which didn't matter until after the 1916 rebellion, when everything English was hated, so he was despised and spat on by his fellow countrymen. The British government paid him a pension that wouldn't have bought a nat breakfast, and he was reduced to begging. And O'Reilly had met him, begging him, giving him a couple of coppers. Then the old boy is admitted to hospital with severe pneumonia, and O'Reilly has to treat him. And he promises him he'll try to help him find a job, and then O'Reilly's life gets away from him and he forgets what he's promised. And then circumstances conspire because he falls in with a builder who's looking for some kind of help. And he has an idea. And he and his friend Bob Beresford go down to the Liberties, to the tenement where Paddy Keogh lives, and they knock at his door. And I'm just going to take you through this scene. It's reasonably long, but bear with me. Jesus, sirs, Paddy said, I'm sorry to have you find me like this. He was sitting on a wooden crate wearing nothing but a collarless shirt, the waist of his pants undone, and his trousers rolled up to his knees. His feet were in a basin of liquid which to Fingal had a familiar bitter smell. Me granny swears by mustard for me corns, he said. He was smoking a cigarette and tried to rise. Stale tobacco mingled with the odours of fried onions and boiled cabbage. Underlying these was a musty aroma of damp coming from torn, mildewed wallpaper behind which the plaster had crumbled. Fingal could see bare laths. He tapped a hand on the man's bony shoulder. Don't get up, Paddy, he said. We'll only take a minute. Would you like a cup of tea? He smiled. It's good of you just to call. Oh, no thanks, Bob said. We only popped in. You're looking well, Mr. O'Reilly. Or is it doctor now, sir? Paddy said and coughed. Still Mr. for a while, Paddy. Fingal looked at Bob. And you remember Mr. Beresford? I do, sir. From St. Patrick's Ward. Good day, sir. Good afternoon, Sergeant, Bob said. And what brings you two here? Paddy asked, and held up his hand to embrace the single-windowed, plank-floored room. Two more crates served as chairs. A table with one short leg resting on a house brick took up space in the middle of the room. A metal basin was piled with chipped plates. The water would have to be hauled upstairs from a pump in the courtyard. A print of the bleeding heart of Jesus hung beside a crucifix on one wall above a soot-stained brick fireplace. The back third of the room was hidden behind a curtain, and Fingal guessed that was the sleeping area. One splash of colour brightened the place. A small, long-tailed, red-breasted bird in a wicker cage trilled a song of joy. Ah, said Paddy, isn't the owl linnet in grand voice? Fingal had heard that captured wild songbirds were in great demand as pets in the town. I suppose she's needed a bit more luxury for a change. Despite Paddy's sarcasm, there was no bitterness in his voice, and his grin was broad. Well, welcome to Dublin's answer to the Taj Mahal Hall. He lifted his feet onto a warm towel, and in case he was wondering, I've seen that place. I was stationed in Jaipur before the war, and the Alroy tomb was only a couple of 100 miles away. He dried his feet. Fingal could see the corns. That's what we've come about, Paddy. Paddy frowned. The Taj or the war? Partly the war. Fingal had been worried about asking a grown man if he could read and write. Such a question could be taken as a mortal insult. So we'd have to find out without inquiring directly. I heard you were in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. I was, sir. I learned a trade. He straightened his shoulders. There was pride in his voice when he said, I was a bloody good mechanic. I thought it would stand me in good stead on city streets, but nah. He waved his right arm stump. A second-grade shell in a motor depot in 1916. He shrugged, put the towel on the floor, nipped out his cigarette, blew through it and put the butt in a small tin for later. He lifted one of his old boots, bent and put it on. Fair play to the army, sir. They didn't chuck me in the rubbish heap. When my stump healed, they kept me on for a while. It was Fingal's turn to frown. What could a one-armed man have done in the army? You'd be amazed, sir, by how many spare parts an army needs for its lorries, motorbikes, them tank things. They kept me on as a storeman, at least until 19. Then the army let me go and I came back to Dublin. Who the hell was giving work to an old English soldier with only one flipper? He waved the stump at the game. A storeman? Fingal wanted to cheer at the news and berate himself at the same time for not following up months ago with Willie Duggan the builder. Did that mean keeping this, Paddy? Paddy started to put on his other boot. If I a penny for every second list I wrote, me and the rest of the family will have a mansion in Black Rock with the other swells. Paddy, Fingal said, how would you like a job as a foreman on a building site? The clatter of a boot hitting the plank startled Fingal as Paddy dropped it, sat bolt upright. He peered at O'Reilly. You're not codding me, sir. I am not. Jesus, Paddy said. Give me right second arm for work. He rubbed his stump with his left arm and laughed. That's if I had one more to give, like, you know. No need, Paddy, Fingal said. Is a Mr. Duggan rebuilding after tenements are torn down and slummed to? He's been looking for months for someone to keep tab on his materials. Mr. Bearville here, and I spoke to him today, didn't we, Bob? We did, Bob said. Mr. O'Reilly told all about you, Sergeant. We didn't know then you'd already had infantry keeping experience. Paddy sat forward. His hand clutched the edge of the crate. Hand. Bob inclined his head to Fingal, who said, he told me to bring you around to meet him this evening. Now! Paddy plucked at his shirt. Jesus, Murphy, I've no decent clothes. Never wear your head, Paddy, Fingal said. There are very few men in top hats and tails on a building site. Paddy bent, grabbed his boot and stood. I'll get me cap and coat. He headed to the curtains. Hang on, Fingal said. Don't you want to hear about the job? Paddy turned. Please, sir, please. If Mr. Duggan likes the look of you, and he's bound to. Good trained list makers are hard to come by. He'll start you tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word was whispered. The pay is 4 shillings a day for a 6-day week. Holy Mother of God. That's £1 4 shillings a week. My God, that's more than 50 quid a year. Paddy looked round the room and Fingal saw him curl his lip at the grimy window that looked down into a sunless lark. I tell you, sir, me and the other kiddos will be out of here by the week's end. So, it's not quite